Welcome to part 2 of our series on Follow. This small group curriculum is designed to help you understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And each week, what we're going to do is look at one passage in the Bible that talks about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Last week, we looked at Luke 14 and how we can be in the crowd following Jesus, but that doesn't mean we're following Jesus on his terms. We looked at what it means to follow Jesus on his terms. This week, we're going to look at a passage in Luke 9:57 to 10, verse 2. So let me read that out. It says, "As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, 'I will follow you wherever you go.' Jesus replied, 'Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head.' He said to another man, 'Follow me.' But he replied, 'Lord, first let me go and bury my father.' Jesus said to him, 'Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God.' Still another said, 'I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family.' Jesus replied, 'No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God.' After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. He told them, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field.'" And so this is a similar passage in a way to last week. There's a whole bunch of people following Jesus, and they come up to Jesus and they say, "Lord, I'll follow you wherever you go." And they make these kind of grand statements to say, "Lord, I'll follow you after my father dies," and a whole bunch of different things. And Jesus replies to these prospects, in a number of different ways that kind of thins the crowd out. And afterwards, he's left with just 72 people there who he appoints to send out into the harvest field. And so what we're going to do in this session is we're going to look at each of those prospects, and we're going to say, look at them to help us learn what it means to be a follower of Jesus. One of the things that this passage and last week's passage emphasizes is it's not enough to be enthusiastic about Jesus. We actually have to be committed to Jesus. I've been around church long enough to see people come in super enthusiastic and then never see them again. And I've also seen people come in super quiet, look really reserved, but have commitment that actually has enabled them to follow Jesus and to grow in their faith. This isn't about a personality. This is about a heart posture or a heart response to Jesus. It's what he's looking for here. And so let's look at prospect number 1. Luke 10, Jesus said, 57, 58, "As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, 'I will follow you wherever you go.' Jesus replied, 'Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head.'" This guy, in a sense, he's too quick to follow Jesus, if there is such a thing. So he's just like, "Lord, I'll follow you wherever you go." And so Jesus is like, "Hey, I don't even know where I'm sleeping, following me." Essentially, he's saying, following me, it's not going to be a comfortable journey. In fact, to follow me, you're signing up to a life of being a pilgrim, where this world isn't your home and you're passing through, like the Psalms say, "Blessed are those whose hearts are set on pilgrimage." He's saying to follow me, you're not signing up for something that's comfortable. And this guy's, it's challenging him. He's like, let me rethink that. So he hasn't really thought through what it means to follow Jesus. Following Jesus means giving up our comfortable life to reach the lost and broken. It means giving up our possessions to help the poor. It means stepping out of what's familiar to reach people who are different from us. And, people who are living for the world will struggle at this point. The reality is, if we're living for this world, then we'll struggle to give up our temporary comforts. The only way we can really be a true disciple is if we're living for the world to come, where it's not about treasure in this world and not about comfort in this world, but it's actually about serving Jesus faithfully and living for the world to come. Let's look at prospect number 2. So Luke 9:59 to 60 says, "He said to another man, 'Follow me.' But he replied, 'Lord, first let me go and bury my father.' Jesus said to him, 'Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God.'" See, the second would-be disciple asked Jesus if he can first bury his father. And Jesus tells him that if he wants to be his disciple, he must respond now. You know, it's clear from this passage that the man's father's still alive. If he was sick, he would have asked Jesus to go and heal him. And if he was dead, he wouldn't have been there. He would have been at home making some funeral arrangements. So if this first prospect is too quick, the second one is too slow. He wants to follow Jesus, but he wants to do it at some point down the track when it's more convenient or more suitable for him. What this man's saying is, Jesus, I'll follow you when it's convenient for me. He wants to fulfill his responsibility to his father, collect his inheritance, and then when he's financially set, he'll be in a better place to follow Jesus. He is putting off his obedience based on a lack of faith and his own personal greed. See, the thing is, following Jesus isn't about fitting him into our life. It's not about tacking him onto the side of our life. Following Jesus is a complete reordering of our whole lives around him and around the gospel. See, it means putting him first and putting the interests of the kingdom first. See, sometimes people put off following Jesus, and you know, I've heard a whole bunch of things. I've heard people say, hey, I'll get involved and serve and give my life once my kids are grown up, or once my kids have left home, or once I'm retired. I've had people say that, you know, when I'm retired, then I'll get involved in serving Jesus. And, you know, really what they're saying is that's a lack of faith. And they're saying, hey, I'm going to serve Jesus when it's convenient for me. And Jesus is saying, actually, to be my disciple requires us to step out in faith and to respond now. I love this verse in Ecclesiastes that says, whoever watches the wind will never sow seeds. And it's like there's never an ideal time. There's never an ideal time to follow Jesus. Jesus is saying today is the day of salvation. Today's the day to follow him.